we have a second session today. This is on enabling sustainable airports and green airports. And what we'll do before that is we'll take a 10-minute break. So I'll see you all back here at 9:45. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed the break, and welcome back. So our fourth session of today will focus on enabling green airports. Now, we've heard a lot about development of roadmaps, we've heard about clean energy transition, and we've heard all these inspiring examples of sustainable development. This session will include financing, the availability of funds for these new innovations, and the cooperation amongst stakeholders. And panelists will discuss the next steps in global environmental policy and strategy. Now, in this session, we have three speakers, and as our first speaker, I'm very pleased to start our fourth session with Mr. Ricardo Dupont, who's Environment Coordinator of the Office for International Affairs and Environment at the National Civil Aviation Agency of Brazil. Ricardo, please unmute your microphone and switch on your camera. A reminder that you have 7 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Neil, and thanks to AQ for this opportunity to present our project that we have developed here at ANAC for the Brazilian airports. The name of this project is Sustainable Airports, very prone for this presentation. So if we can go to first slide, please. We have been given the mission to develop a project to promote this sustainable development of our airport community here in Brazil. So we have thought about that and developed this concept on how to implement a program to develop our community. We have chosen to use the principle of the responsible regulation. So we based our project, and you will see how it works later on the presentation, on this principle of the responsible regulation. No regulatory measures are considered in this project. It's a voluntary, no-fee subscription program, and it's intended to stimulate the proactivity and the adoption of best practices by our airports in Brazil. Our objective is also to create this knowledge sharing network between the airports and to recognize all the actions that are already being taken by the airports in their day-by-day basis. And we have criteria covering all areas related to environment and climate. The name of the project is this on your right side, Sustainable Airports in Portuguese. If we can go to the next slide, please. We started that with a pilot project in 2019. It was called Sustainable Airdromes by then. We moved to a permanent program in 2020, now called Sustainable Airports. And we are now in the third edition in 2021, and subscriptions are open up until today, actually. If you can go to next slide, please. How does it work then? We have developed this program, and it works basically on ANAC preparing a set of criteria to be used for each year edition. So now we are in 2021 edition. We use material prepared by all stakeholders that we can find. We use ACI documents, ICAO documents, sustainability plans from the airports that have been published, and all this material that we find. We use this AHP process associated with peer review to define the weight of or the value of each one of these criteria. We use several experts that have knowledge on this airport community field. And then we publish an invitation for voluntary subscription on our official journal once a year. Following that, we have the airport subscription and filling of an online form with their statement of compliance. So they provide evidence of how they attend each one of these criteria. And ANAC then evaluates the correspondence between the criteria and the answers of the airports. At the very end, the results are published on our website, along with all data provided by the airports. One of the ideas here is the social control, actually, of the project. So, and also the knowledge sharing idea. So we have everything provided from the airports, also put back on the internet so that everyone can see what they do. Next slide, please. Here we have some results. what does an airport get from this project? They get a stamp saying whether they are above average or below average, and then we call them, we define them in two classes. We have the upper left one is first class stamp, and then we have the business class stamp. They compete between them in two categories. So we have smaller airports. We have the category shown in the right panel there. That's actually the panel that's on the internet. C1 are the smaller airports, and then we have C2. We had no subscriptions last year from that category. And then C3 and C4 are the largest airports. So they compete between them, and inside each one of these categories, they are classified as business class or first class. So we can see on there those that are first class in blue, and then those that are business class in yellow or orange. We have on the very right side the average percentage of the sustainability practices reached within each one of these core environmental areas. And here are the areas that we look at. So water, electricity, policy and management of this environmental policy, water resources, waste, health and well-being, noise, climate change, biodiversity, and local air quality. These are the criteria used for the 2020 edition. And then if you go if you want to see the review results, you can go to each one of the airports on the very top of the page. The link is down below here. And if I could conclude here, we have gone through 3 editions already. We have strong participation. Actually, 70% of the passengers or airports corresponding to 70% of the passengers of Brazil are participating in this project or this program now. Airports are actually very satisfied. They are now competing between them. We can see this good competition between them, trying to be the best one in class. And they are achieving very good performances. We can see very high levels of achievements on this program. And I forgot to say that the best of all of them gets the recognition for this fact. And you can see the list of the participants and actually the order of classification from this 2020 edition on this page. And I believe that's what I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for presenting this approach with airports in Brazil, outlining how you prepare criteria and then showcase them in relation to the average based on their performance. I do think this is an extremely important example of showcasing the performance of airports from a sustainability perspective. Thanks for your presentation. So our next speaker is Ms. Jannica Ludvigsson, Project Manager SAF, Climate Strategist at Swedavia. Jannica, please unmute your microphone, switch on your camera. A reminder that you have 7 minutes. I'll switch on my video when it's time to wrap up, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon from Sweden. I would actually like to start with one thing that we realized early on was that the issue of climate change is important, not only for the environment and the society as a whole, but also for our business and the industry, because people will need to meet even in the future in a sustainable way. More than 10 years ago, we decided that we will be fossil-free from the airport operation we have under our own management, a goal very few thought it was possible to achieve. And it is no secret that we are amidst of something nothing short of an existential crisis. I'm referring to climate change as a result of human activities. And it's clear that business as usual is not good enough. The aviation sector is indeed part of the problem, but we can also be part of the solution. And today I can proudly say that we have reached our target. And no, it is not a silver bullet for the climate challenge of the aviation sector, but it's a very important milestone that we are proud of. So next slide, please, Neil. And it has not been an easy journey. When we started, we have over 8,000 tons of fossil carbon emissions per year to phase out. And as you see here on this slide, the majority of the emissions were generated in 3 main areas: for the energy supply. We have green electricity, we have heating, we have cooling, we have district heating, and fossil-free backup power that runs with renewable diesel. Today, Swedavia has more than 800 fossil-free vehicles, of which 40% run on electricity. In 2025, Swedavia aims for 50 shares of electric vehicles. And Swedavia has over 700 charging stations for electric vehicles. And all of our equipment used at Swedavia's operation, from leaf blower to chainsaws, they are also now fossil-free. And Swedavia has also worked with indirect emission, for example, those from purchased electricity for which green origin is guaranteed, and also the reduction of carbon emission from business travel, for which we have bought sustainable aviation fuel since 2016. And I think this also is one among many important initiatives to reach the target in Sweden of 5% sustainable aviation fuel by 2025. Next slide, please. I would also like to talk about the importance of innovation for a company's aim to get to net zero, as you heard here earlier. And one good example is our new remote control PSP. Here we did not only drive the development of fossil-free vehicles together with suppliers, but by thinking outside the box and combining different new ideas, we have managed to set requirements to make them even more sustainable. Today they are wider, they were remote controlled, integrated format spreaders. This has also led us to fewer PSP machines with reduced fuel consumption. It has also led us to increase punctuality and runaway time. With shorter waiting time for aircraft in the air, emissions are reduced as well as the costs. So the next step now is increased degree of automation and autonomy. Next slide, please. And yeah, I would like to share you something. We have learned so much along the way. I would say that collaboration is the key to find solution, both within the company and with suppliers and others. And we have also learned that measurements and data leads to insights and new possibilities. To ensure that we really achieve the goal, we have implemented sophisticated measurements. This has also would have never been possible to fulfill without commitment shown by our employees. We have invented solutions when they did not exist, and they dare to make demands on the supplier market that maybe was not always mature for fossil-free alternatives. And if I share some keys of success to you all, is I would say the most important is the commitment from our owners and executive leader is essential. We have had our management team on our side all the way. And the industry's transition to sustainable aviation is business critical, as I told you earlier. And you have to dare to set brave targets. We challenged ourselves to set targets we didn't know how to reach. However, they were measurable, they were engaging and challenging, and the solution, they actually came during the way. And I will also say that sustainability has strengthened our business and fueled innovation. We see several examples in our business. We see better punctuality, higher cost efficiency, great customer focus with more satisfied customer. If you take measures that don't contribute to the business benefit, I will actually say that this you have probably made the wrong decision. And sustainability is not a competition. It is a joint journey, a journey that can be inspiring, profitable, and fun. Next slide, please. So at Swedavia, we have now taken the next step in our climate ambition. So we must eliminate all sources of fossil carbon emission and also work on the other issues for sustainable airports of the future. And some examples what we are doing next is we will strengthen our collaboration with the actors all around our airports. I will also say that our airports in Gothenburg and Stockholm will be ACI 4+ certified by the end of the year. Swedavia has had an incentive program for sustainable aviation fuel for the airlines since 2020, and we will, at the turn of the year, introduce an incentive program for renewable diesel, which means that the renewable diesel will be cheaper to refuel at our airports than fossil diesel. So this is an important initiative to help other actors at our airports to decrease their emissions. We will also introduce climate different airport fees next year, and I think we are here the first in the world to include sustainable aviation fuel in these fees. We work for increased sustainable intermodality, for example, improving the connection between train and airports. or improving the passenger experience when changing from public transport to the airport. We work to enable a transition, enabling electrifying ground transport and aviation, and adapting the infrastructure. We participate in several electric aviation projects, and we prepare our airport for future technology. An important measure we just have started working with is to capture carbon dioxide instead of climate compensation. It is important that we reduce our emission because aviation must be greener, and we can't only rely on climate compensation. And we also work with the nudging project at our airport. We want our travelers to be involved and contribute to the transition to be fossil free. And as you have seen here, our work is not just blah, blah, blah for climate. I have tried to show both concrete actions and results on how to reduce the climate impact from our industry. This is essential task for aviation because the aviation of the future needs to be fossil free. Thank you so much from Sweden.
Thank you, Jannica, and thank you for the presentation. It's really good to see that that very complete overview of your work and on all the sustainability initiatives. And I think, as you said at the end, not just blah 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 on climate, but real actions reducing real CO2 emissions. Thank you for your presentation. We'll hear more from you in the discussion.
Yes.
So our next speaker is Mr. Tiago Lopez, aviation, drones and mobility innovation expert at the European Investment Bank. Tiago, please unmute your microphone, switch on your camera. A reminder that you have 7 minutes and the floor is yours.
Many thanks, Neil. I presume you can hear me okay. First slide, please. Perfect. So I'm coming from the European Investment Bank. We are the public bank of the European Union, based in Luxembourg, a co-capital of the EU. And we recognize that the airports are a very capital-intensive sector. Next slide, please. Next one. Yes. So very quickly, I would like to let you know what we are doing. So we are the public bank of the European Union and have recently become the climate bank of the European Union as well. We are the largest multilateral green lender in the world. So we lend about 70 billion a year, of which 10% outside the EU. We have AAA ratings, and our competitive advantage is that we pass on these conditions to clients through long tenors and through interest rates. Following the publication of the European Green Deal and Sustainable Smart Mobility Strategy by the European Commission, all our projects are now Paris aligned, and we have the ambitious goal of lending 50% towards significant environmental and climate, so-called green projects. We have been around for quite some time. We've been created by the Treaty of Rome in 1958. And over 6 years, we have invested or lent over 1.2 trillion, of which on average 1 billion per year in aviation, covering mostly airports, but also air navigation and aviation, electric aviation and drones. We'd like to believe we are a crowding in bank. So after the EIB invests, other corporate banks will follow. They trust our due diligence, and of this 1.2 invested, the remaining banks have contributed around 3 trillion over the last 60 and a few years. We have a relatively small team of 3,400 staff, and with a focus, our mandate is mostly around environment, infrastructure, innovation, and SMEs, and all of these are aligned with the airport business. Of course, we are expanding our international presence in the world with around 50 offices. Next slide, please. So what we do when it comes to airports. So as a bank, we support financially, economically some projects, and they say that the picture is worth 1,000 words. Our friends from ACI have basically mapped Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions at the airports. So our key goal when it comes to green finance is to support projects aiming to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And this includes all the activities that you can see on the left-hand side. Over the last few years, we've supported ground handling electrification, airfield ground lighting replacement, solar and geothermal plants, building and utilities renewal, and we look forward to supporting SAFs, vertiports, and this is all within our mandate. We also recognize that it's difficult sometimes to get significant volumes when it comes to green financing. So we also support, and in the context of Paris alignment, we also support operational resilience projects, both landside, terminal, and airside. And this in the context of this build back better terminology or rationale. And for us, this means basically building back according to the latest environmental, climate, building and energy consumption standards. I mean, and this basically covers the whole airport infrastructure. So not just the green projects, but also the more traditional asphalt and concrete infrastructure that is found commonly in airports. And of course, as another let's say branch of our investment, we also support alignment with the highest safety and security and regulatory standards, covering both green and non-green investments. What we do not do for the time being, we do not finance capacity expansion. We believe that airport infrastructure, in order to be sustainable, should basically work within the existing sites and within the existing capacity. And we look forward that this infrastructure basically becomes more sustainable and green. And eventually, when the electrification plays a more significant role within aviation, we'll revert back to capacity increase. We have a very close cooperation with the European Commission and the associate agencies like the European Aviation Safety Agency, and we look forward to financing your projects. Next slide, please. So just to give you a couple of reference projects which have a green component, we selected 2 projects outside the EU. So basically saying that we're also financing airports outside the EU. The first one is the St. Martin Terminal Reconstruction. St. Martin, you might be aware, is this very nice airport where the approach is over the beach, over Maho Beach, and where very spectacular landings. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, the island was hit by the twin hurricanes Irma and Maria in a very short sequence, which basically destroyed the terminal. So we were called to support, and in this project, basically the scope was the terminal reconstruction, and the green elements were the new terminal roof and also the facade, which was designed to withstand hurricanes up to level 5. That's the highest level in terms of hurricane force. And these for us was very important because it's a key project in terms of climate adaptation. We also, I mean, we also don't work alone usually. So we work in partnership with other commercial banks and international financial institutions. And this time we have worked with the World Bank, where on top of the project, we helped to set up the project implementation unit and co-financing with World Bank. We are monitoring the project. It's going very well, and it's expected to open with full capacity very soon. The second project was a project with the higher volumes. We lent 270 million to Kyiv Borispol Airport. The scope of work was the replacement of an old runway, and not only the runway, but also the associated infrastructure, the instrument landing system, rescue firefighting station, etc. And these had a small share of green elements. But as I said previously, sometimes it is difficult for a large investment bank to find a comprehensive package of only green investments, and therefore we are not fundamentalistic. We understand that in order to have a financeable package, with a very short or relatively short implementation timing. We need also to look for other investments which are not green. Of course, we prefer those green investments, and also we are also alongside our clients to find these, to optimize these. And in this specific context, we not only finance the actual works, but also the design element and also the independent engineer. And that's all from my side. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you very much. Feel free to drop me a line or visit our website. It's very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiago, for this presentation and giving us an overview of your investments in aviation and in the context of building back better on land side, terminal and air side, and also these really important case studies that you highlighted, which also have the context of adaptation and of course mitigation. Thanks for the presentation. So you are our last speaker actually over today. What we're going to do now is to go into a discussion session on enabling green airports, and I have a few questions which will structure this session. Now, we've heard about partnerships, we've heard about financing, and we've heard about the way we might move into this sustainable future. So my first question is based on your experiences. What are the main factors of success and also risk in building multi-stakeholder partnerships for sustainable aviation? And to begin with, I'll go to Ricardo.
Thank you, Neil. I believe you already gave an answer for this question, but first thing that I would say is very important is partnership, trust, and cooperation. These are the pillars that we need when we are developing these actions on sustainability. Very, very important things. And this actually is one of the principles that we use in this project that we developed. So I'll answer that question with these main principles.
Thank you, Ricardo. Jannica, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I can add, I think it's very important to have a clear common target, and also that you have a good business case and business benefit of your cooperation. I think that is also something that's very important.
Thank you, Jannica. Tiago, please, on to you for partnerships.
Well, when you talk about partnerships, I think one of the key aspects is to set up realistic expectations from the beginning, especially when you're going into green investments. I mean, we've heard our panelists over the last few days talk about it. It takes time to become a green airport, and these expectations between airport operators, public entities, airport neighbors, NGOs, etc. I mean, these expectations should be really aligned and eventually set on paper, because politicians, airport operators, airlines, they all operate within different time frames, so they all have different expectations of when projects will materialize, when they will be open, and when they will start giving financial returns, and when they will provide improvements for the neighboring communities. And I mean, what we find out also from experience is that these expectations sometimes are not quite aligned. So I mean, it's definitely useful to work against a concrete timeline, to have a very well defined scope of projects or a program of works, of investments. And also, it's extremely important to understand whether who's going to pay for the costs and where the revenues, if they exist, are coming from, and how are these going to be distributed. I mean, if you don't clearly align all of these factors, making green investments and having a clear strategy will become very, very difficult.
Thank you, Tiago. So if I understand your points of view correctly, this is really about trust and building relationships. It's not just about aviation partners. It's also a wider spread of partners, and some of which are new to this this sector. And I think from what I just heard you say, Tiago, it's really about ensuring that these roles are clearly defined, and that this obviously reflects on the costs and the revenues, and this all has to be defined in any partnership. So
can I add something?
Yes, of course, Janneke, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I was to say, in Swedavia's point of view, we are a cooperation with all actors all around our airports, and also with other airport operators all around the world, because the work to be fossil free, we need to cooperate. We can't do it by ourselves, and that is very important to just gather everybody in the value chain and how we can help each other to increase the carbon emissions. So I think we have a partnership with all around the world just to find solutions, to be innovative, and to reach the target. And in Sweden, we are aiming to be fossil free from all scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions.
Yes, thank you, Janneke. Yes, this is really crucial, and I think we've heard this throughout the event in these two days. It's really about bringing all actors together in order to reach our targets. You know, what we also heard yesterday is about taking on board the local and regional aspects, also cultural aspects, when working with this wide variety of stakeholders. Ricardo, Tiago, I'll give you an opportunity to come back on stakeholders if you wish to add anything else.
I mean, I think one important point that you mentioned is cultural differences. I mean, when talking about the Nordics, there is a very high awareness of climate and aviation, well, aviation impacts in particular, and climate impacts in general. And there is this, let's say, public movement, including flight shaming, that basically drives airport authorities to invest in climate and to have quick and demonstrable results when it comes to CO2 reductions and compliance with the highest standards. When you go to the other areas of the world, and you don't need to go much more to the south, take the example of Germany and France. I mean, the economic aspect of airport activity takes much more relevance, both for airports and airlines. So it will be in this context, it becomes a little bit more difficult to align interests. I mean, what I think it's needed, and I think ICAO is doing a great job on this, is basically to set up worldwide regulations and standards, and of course give support in terms of knowledge, and well, we are here to give financial support as well, in order for the whole, let's say, aviation community or airport community around the world to have, well, if not the same pace of progress like Swedish airports are having, at least a very good progress towards fully decarbonizing in 2050. But that's a long-term goal, as we've heard before, but at least having some measurable intermediate deadlines, like, for example, the 2030 Fit for 55 package.
Thank you, Tiago. Ricardo, I'll give you a word on what, if you've got anything else to add on partnerships.
I would like to actually add to this regional and local characteristics. If you,
yes, go ahead.
We were just talking about differences between countries, right? When we look at this project, we saw many differences, cultural differences, and other regional access to many feedstocks or things like that. actually inside our country. We have many different regions inside Brazil, so we have different characteristics that we need to take into account, even when looking inside our country. So we really should pay attention to these needs and this availability of things that we have locally.
Thank you, Ricardo. Yes, and we heard a number of comments along these lines yesterday to ensure that these differences are indeed respected. It is actually crucial to our work. So I'm going to move from partnerships now. I think that was a really great discussion, starting with the word trust, and then defining roles, all aiming at demonstrable CO2 reductions. We see good progress, but we see different paces of progress. And then I think, just to pick up on Ricardo's last comment, it's very important to maintain and realize the cultural and regional differences that need to be respected in this regard. So I'm going to move from partnerships. I'm going to go to financing. So from each of you, I'd just like to hear on what are the main aspects to consider for enabling financing and funding for green airports initiatives. I'm going to go in reverse order this time. So I'm going to go to Tiago first.
That's really a very good question. I mean, I think the key issue here is to have a realistic plan of investments. I mean, and airports can do it by themselves or engage consultants and abide with local policies or regional policies, etc. But the key thing is to have a realistic plan of investments and to have set clear KPIs and clear deadlines and clear goals for what this investment will achieve. I mean, sorry if I'm taking the view of an investment banker, but I mean, when clients come to us, I mean, it's fundamental to have a very solid business plan. They've made their due diligence, and this really helps in giving finance, and especially in giving them cheap financing, so minimizing any external risks, non-operational risks. And I mean, if you have these elements with you, I mean, I think finance becomes really cheap, and we can really build on a serious partnership, and trust will obviously be created if we as a bank believe that our client is serious about investing.
Thank you, Tiago. Same question to you, Jannica.
Yes, I can just answer you from Swedavia's point of view, and I know that the investors, they are expecting us to be proactive or be in front of with our climate and environmental work. And I know that it's moving a lot in EU and international within sustainable financing, especially with the EU taxonomy, TCFTA framework. I know that our stakeholders, they're expecting us to be a leader in driving sustainable airports. So this is actually very important for us, because the stakeholders, they're expecting it from us.
And yeah, thank you for that, Jannica. And this is another point that we certainly heard yesterday, that there is an expectation from stakeholders that the airports and the aviation sector greens itself. There is an expectation here, and that's obviously reflected into some of the comments I think that we heard from Tiago as well. So we've heard the investment bank perspective, we've heard the airport perspective. Ricardo, your perspective from the state on financing and your experiences there, please.
I believe Tiago is in a much better position to answer this question, but I would add to what he said: policy definition. When we have clear policies, I believe that makes all work much easier for everybody, for all stakeholders.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to come to those policies, and actually, I heard also Tiago commented at the beginning about kind of ICAO's work. I'm going to come to those in a moment, and what we can do as an international community here, and what will be expected. I'll just open the floor for any further comments on financing before we wrap this one up. Any other comments? Okay, so what I think I heard in terms of financing is that a realistic plan for investment is extremely important, with clear goals. So a solid plan that minimizes risk. I heard the word trust again. So this is about building serious partnerships. And if with that clear plan, these partnerships can be built. We heard the investment bank perspective, we heard the airport perspective, and we also heard that perspective from the state. This seems to be a growing expectation on the sector in terms of a green transition. We hear that a lot. We've heard that through numerous ICAO initiatives going back to the stock taking earlier this year and through to this green airports event. And that policy definition is extremely important. And that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going to go next, because I'm going to ask each of you the following question. And I will this time start with Yannicka. I'll go Yannicka, Ricardo, and then Tiago. If you had one wish from ICAO for global policies relating to enabling sustainable projects, what would it be? So one wish from ICAO, what would it be?
Policy to enable. Oh. Can I pass the question and come back?
Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Please give it some thought. I'll go to Ricardo next.
This is actually a tricky question. What I believe is actually we have discussed the answer for this question in the previous ones, right? We need to build trust, and we need ICAO to help us to build that trust between public, private, and all stakeholders. We need ICAO to use these principles of regional differences, local vocations, and this kind of measures in the development of the measures. I believe this will make things much easier for states to incorporate into their actual implementation of these measures. So I believe that would be my wish.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Now
you feel inspired, Yannicka. Go ahead.
It was really a tricky question, but I think that one thing is that sustainable aviation fuel, that this fuel is actually sustainable and not low carbon fuel, and also that we have focused on reducing our emission instead of compensating.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Yannicka. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, I think that was all.
Thank you for that. Tiago, please.
Well, from what I've seen over the last 2 days, I'm not concerned that the airports will achieve their green and climate goals. I'm really concerned, and if ICAO had a magic wand, I would ask ICAO to focus on the transition in terms of sustainable aviation fuels, transition from the use of Jet A1, so current kerosene, to sustainable aviation fuels, and later to to push for the electrification of aircraft, be it through batteries or hydrogen or whatever technology. I mean, this is where the most of emissions, by far the largest share of emissions, comes from, and this is where the weakest stakeholder in the value chain of aviation, which is the airlines, sits. I mean, airlines have been most hit by the COVID crisis. They are in a very poor financial position to do significant investments, and if ICAO could do something, would be to push for the let's say faster standards of introduction of SAFs and electrical aircraft. I know it's a little bit off the remit, but it was a wish, so there it goes.
I think this is extremely important. What you're referring to is ICAO's core role of developing international standards and recommended practices. Of course, we've just heard in our previous session that 2024, 2025 is the kind of time frame for at least urban air mobility type aircraft. So certification base for that and development of it will be extremely important. But if I understand in how ICAO can help, I think joining people together is what I'm hearing, developing trust, helping with those kind of partnerships, and of course developing these international policy measures and standards of recommended practice. I also hear that we should really focus from your perspective is on SAF and the certification, and to push for these new rules to enable this this green transition. I'll also add, actually, and something that we've already worked on in ICAO is also trying to show what's possible. So over the last few years, we've worked on a number of example projects. For example, a solar at gate project. So the construction of a solar panel array and gate electrification, where we can actually show these real CO2 reductions from international aviation. So as a pilot project, if you would, to showcase what can be done, and we know that this is then being replicated. Also, feasibility studies. We heard about feasibility studies before in our previous session as being key. So this is also about helping ICAO member states in building their capacity and understanding of the topic. So what can be done and where it can go in the future. And I think ICAO can have a really important role, and a very important role there in building this capacity, whether it's assisting in feasibility study or assisting in showcasing pilot projects. Go ahead, Yannick, if you have something to.
The last thing I would like to add is also support ambitious climate goals for the aviation industry, and not maybe support the goals that are far too ahead. The more ambitious climate goals, I would like to see that you support.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Yannicka, and I think that's a great place to go now as we draw this session to a close, because of course ICAO is working as instructed at its last assembly on the feasibility of a long-term aspirational goal. That technical work has really moved forward, and as we move through 2022 leading up to the next session of the ICAO assembly, the ICAO Council will consider this exact topic and the feasibility of a long-term goal for the overall sector. While Yannicka had a final word, Ricardo, Tiago, would you like to have a final word?
No, well, I'd just like to thank you very much for the opportunity. I would like to incentivize ICAO to keep on the good job, and I mean we realize that if we are going to achieve our climate targets, they must be achieved worldwide and not just in Europe or US, etc. I mean, most of the growth will come from countries outside the, let's say, the Western world, and we are also here to support them.
Thank you, Tiago. Ricardo, last word to you.
Just wanted to thank for the opportunity and congratulate for this webinar. It was very interesting.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's certainly interesting. I certainly found it very interesting, and I'd like to thank all the speakers that joined us today. I hope you all found it informative out there as well. So let me just maybe I'll just try and wrap up this final session. So in our discussion here, we talked about partnerships, we talked about financing, and then we talked about this policy development and the role of ICAO at the international level. A word that I heard all the way through is trust. Developing trust, extremely critical to this topic. And we started with partnerships, and developing trust between partners is key, whether that's airport partners and the surrounding partners, as I think was highlighted by a number of our speakers today. This also is about defining relationships in these partnerships, and whether that's relationships on tasks and what's actually done, or costs and revenue. This is all very important. In the end, all these actions leading to demonstrable CO2 reduction measures. I think that's an exact quote from you, Tiago. I think that's extremely important. We've also seen lots of progress. We've seen it throughout these two days, and we continue to see it in this session. And while they're a different pace, the progress is clear and the direction is clear. And this is all about partnerships to encourage it and move it forward. We then moved on to financing, and I heard about realistic plans for investment with clear goals. These are important. I also heard, again, the word partnership, but I heard the word serious partnerships. So with realistic plans for investment and clear goals, it will lead to serious partnerships with minimized risks. And I think I also heard at least two of you say about how these financing sustainable projects can also generate revenue. We heard the investment bank perspective, we heard the airport perspective, and we also heard the state perspective. And we finished that financing discussion by highlighting the importance of policy definition. And that led to us talking about ICAO's role. Again, the word trust and helping build these partnerships will be key. But we also have to make sure we reflect these differences, of course, cultural, state, regional differences from a cultural perspective when developing these measures. I think going back to a comment all the way at the beginning about there's lots of development, but different paces of development, we need to make sure that's also reflected. You highlighted a couple of key areas maybe that we can focus on: SAF, the certification of new aircraft types, and making sure that this regulatory framework encourages the industry. And of course, we've also heard today about UAM, for example, and 2024 and 2025 being its entry into service. So very soon indeed. And then we wrapped up by talking about supporting ambitious climate goals. And of course, this is crucial. We see a growing number of climate goals from the sector, from the industry, from ICAO member states. I'll take this opportunity to point out that many of these are captured on our ICAO tracker tools, on technology, operations, on fuels, and on roadmaps. They're all captured there from the international community. So I encourage you to visit that website. You can really see this full wealth of information that I do believe underpins this discussion. And of course, that ICAO itself, with its member states, working on the feasibility of a long-term aspirational goal, aiming at the ICAO Assembly in October 2022. And with that, I'll wrap this session up. So that brings us to the end of our fourth session, and indeed the end of our Green Airports seminar. I'm very pleased as we draw to this seminar to a close, to close the event, the director of the Air Transport Bureau at ICAO, Mr. Mohammed Rahma. Mohammed will give us his perspective on the event in his closing remarks. Mohammed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Neil. Do you hear me well?
Loud and clear, sir.
Thank you very much again, Neil. Good day, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is really my honor to have a gathering of such eminent people from the aviation industry. I'm really very pleased to see so many of you were able to join the 2021 seminar on green airports. And I would like to thank you all for your valuable contribution to the event. As the seminar is drawing to a close, I would like to share with you some reflections and thoughts. The airports today play an important role in local and national economies. Of course, addressing the environmental impacts of airports is vital to the sustainability of the sector. Green airports can be levers of change by adapting the best management practices combined with innovations and clean energies. Airports can serve as examples to other stakeholders within the sectors and beyond. This important seminar was an outstanding example of how much progress has been made and the work that is underway to enable the transition towards the sustainable future of airports. During these 2 days, we heard about the global trends in environmental management, climate change adaptation and mitigation, building airports with renewable energy at the heart of their operation, multi-stakeholders cooperation, circular economy, latest innovations, and ambitious goals and roadmaps. The importance of all these topics cannot be overstated, and I'm happy to see that states, organizations, and airports have already started to make significant progress in this direction. There are, of course, challenges ahead of us, but with the innovation we have seen during this event, I'm really very optimistic for the future. The aviation sector has always dealt with challenges and adversities with creativity and determination. And we are all confident that the sector will continue to do so. You will also recall that in 2021, ICAO stocktaking included a focused session on sustainable airport operations and infrastructure. And the sessions at the stocktaking, led by experienced executives and experts from all over the world, showcased innovative solutions, initiatives, and operational measures, both in the air and on the ground, including innovations on airports and infrastructure. In the light of the discussions during the stocktaking and this Green Airport seminar, it is evident that clean energies are key to enable the green future of aviation sector. Airports have a crucial role in becoming clean energy hubs for productions, transport, and storage, and in reducing emissions from international aviation. During these 2 days, it has been inspiring to see that the development of new technologies and innovation is a key factor of success in minimizing the carbon footprints and costs while helping to optimize operation. Several examples ranging from operational and technological, airports collaborative decision-making, solar panel installation, rainwater harvesting, electrification of vehicles, retrofits, clean energy, purchases, and more have showcased how they will take us to a greener future. It is also clear that financing such innovations and technology for clean energy, green airports infrastructure has been and has become more imperative than before. With all stakeholders' involvement, it is possible to develop visions that shall contribute to a better return while maintaining environmental sustainability as the core. We firmly believe that all the progress, ideas, innovations, financing opportunities showcased today towards a greener future can inspire many stakeholders to follow the same path. In closing, I would like again to thank you all and thank all the speakers for their inspiring presentations and their great efforts that have contributed to the success of these virtual events. And I will not conclude before thanking the ICAO Environment team, and thank you, Neil, personally for the excellent moderation of the seminar, for the organization and for the running of this event. I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you in person very soon. Thank you very much, and over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Ratma, for the inspiring words and congratulations to the environment team, as you said, for delivering this event. Thank you to all our speakers. I had fun moderating it. I could have carried on the discussion for a long time with you all. I'd like to take this opportunity before we just finish to reiterate our invitation to stakeholders who have innovations to reduce CO2 emissions to join the ICAO Global Coalition for Sustainable Aviation. Some of the presenters here that you've seen today are already part of this coalition. I'd like to kindly invite the entire community watching to please join us in this initiative. The main objective of this coalition is to promote sustainable international civil aviation by close collaboration. So the partnerships that we've talked about here today amongst the proposed global coalition partners, aviation industry, of course, all the stakeholders towards a sustainable future of the aviation system. Please go to our website for more details. We'll be very pleased to hear from all of you. It really is a good platform to showcase your latest initiatives. And this brings our Green Airport Seminar for 2021 to a close. Thank you so much for joining us all today. A big thank you to all our speakers. I do hope that we do this face-to-face next time. I wish you all an excellent rest of your day. And until next time, stay safe and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.